If Wales keep this up, it's going to be the wildest Grand Slam of all time. Whereas normally those clinching the ultimate prize in rugby's oldest championship are divided 50-50 into dominant teams who sweep all aside and the brave and plucky sides who declare it their year to really stand up and be counted, Wayne Pivac's Wales are now looking to add a new third category to that list: the jammy gits. I can only speculate about how Pivac aims to outdo a second successive win over a team down to 14 men, but personally, I hope the game against England is won by an Owen Farrell penalty, ricocheting so far off the crossbar it travels back in time to the days in which tries weren't worth points and screws up the scoring system enormously, disallowing all 6 of England's 5-pointers before the ball reappears in 2021 and lands in the arms of Adam Beard, who seals the game with a snap-drop goal. But as funny as a Welsh Grand Slam would be this year, in many ways the match that set them on that path would and always will remain a bit of a shame, as with 1 week played, this year's Six Nations look to finally be the hugely refreshing year where Scotland take the title, if not go on to complete their own Grand Slam from deep inside that second category. And for the majority of the match, I was mentally chalking this off as just the second burst of coal in the old Scottish Grand Slam hype train, because Gregor Townsend's team were in complete control. The first stanza of the game had the same vibe as Wales' win over Scotland in 2005, the "this is our year" energy being converted into some superb rugby. And there was no better evidence of this exuberance than the first try, finished by the returning Darcy Graham. Last week, Scotland closed things down by kicking brilliantly from the back, but here, after Justin Tipperick takes a line out and Gareth Davies clears beyond halfway, Graham decides to run. Now, we've seen less and less counter-attack the last year because current breakdown interpretations, and more importantly, the quality of defensive lines following a kick, mean you're more likely to get turned over if you do so than ever. So, Graham here looks up for the greatest concentration of blue shirts and runs into that area, meaning he'll have support to secure the ball. However, Wales are still reshuffling into a proper defensive line, and Wee Darcy's decision allows quick ball that Price spins out to Fagerson on the wing. Liam Williams quite cleverly bides his time until the line is more organised to make the tackle, meaning the Welsh line is about 90% in shape by the time the ball gets to Hamish Watson, who's well met by Alan Wynne-Jones. But Tipperick and Owens commit to the tackle as well, with Beard resting on the ruck, leaving Wales with just 2 forwards on the fringes. Normally, Bigger's slight rush here is complemented by a third forward inside him about here, but instead, Russell is able to split Faletau and Wainwright, and with Bigger so far forward, Gray can pick a really clean support line. He stumbles and bundles forward like a giraffe after 6 pints before crashing into Halfpenny, who brings him down. With their fullback on the floor, Gareth Davies begins pointing and screaming for someone to cover the left-hand corner of the backfield. So, the moment Halfpenny gets back up to his feet, he jogs into that corner to cover the cross kick, whilst Watson's carry once again sucks in 3 defenders. Darcy Graham, meanwhile, lurks way back here and has spotted how far wide Halfpenny is. He calls for the kick, but because he's only wee and a long way away, his harder mate Rory has to pass on the message to Price. Ali then shapes the pass, but then drops the ball onto his wrong foot and dinks it into the massive blind spot in the Welsh backfield instead for Graham to regather and round Halfpenny for a really lovely opening try. And Scotland's second try also came from exploiting a blind spot in the Welsh backfield. So, off a scrum, Price passes to Harris, and Wales expect a crash ball, covering not just Harris, but James Lang here on his inside, who may receive a pop pass to crash it up instead. However, Harris, whilst always facing Lang, always facing in that direction, turns the full way round to pass instead to Russell. This buys Finn a second, but he lends that second instead to Stuart Hogg, who spots Halfpenny is rushing up to cover this, so he dinks it in behind. Wales' backfield is organised so that when Halfpenny makes a decision like this, Reece Hammett will cover across from the far wing, but even a man as quick as him isn't getting into the zone Hogg kicked into before him. It leaves Halfpenny in a very awkward position, the ball spills loose, and Hogg finishes from there really well. Now, last week I praised Scotland's ability to mix up the Gregor Townsend constructed and careful style with Finn Russell's more free-willing improvise approach, and this try is a perfect demonstration of that mix. Now, this try by Exeter last year isn't quite the same move, but it's very similar, and it makes for a very clean comparison with Scotland's, considering it starts in roughly the same position, it's against a team in red, and it's finished by Stuart Hogg. But the key difference here is that the winger hits a line that splits the defence wide open. Hogg is just the support there to finish. Again, Scotland's use of the 9 and 12 are slightly different, but the ideal outcome is the same, yet Van der Merwe times his run wrong and is in no man's land here, rather than hitting the hole. And it's also not helped by the fact Tompkins adjusts to the non-crash ball really superbly and eats up the space. But as the move goes awry, Russell and Hogg never panic, and instead have the calmness, skill and vision to find and exploit a second weakness in the Welsh defence on the fly. And while Scotland remained exciting in attack, once again it was a newfound kicking game that put them in real complete control of this game. Similar to last last week, Scotland took control and impetus away from Wales, who were reduced to just kicking the ball back to Scotland, rather than allowing them to put any real pressure on. This kick is easily covered by Gareth Davies, but he's still in an awkward enough position that he's only really giving Scotland a chance to counter-attack. No pressure applied. Wales kicked really bad, very badly in that first half, and responsibility for that lies on the shoulders of two men. Now, if Jimble Jamble Sex Canary at his worst is a petulant toddler, Daniel William Biggett is all too capable of being a stroppy teenager, telling the referee to get out of my room, mum! God! You never understand me. And whilst he seemed to get all his aggro with Matt Carley out of the way last year, there was a sullen spirit to Big on Saturday that ate into his actual ability to play rugby. The first real sign is here. After drawing the penalty, Bigger slots into the pocket, but prop Wyn Jones is in the way, and if we listen closely to the ref, Mike... Yeah, and then after the penalty's awarded, Bigger loses shit and chucks the ball away in anger. He looks really, really frustrated. At the moment, it's impossible to win a test match with a misfiring kicking game. So if your fly half is stropping about the pitch and your scrum half a medical miracle marvelled at for being the first human being to ever walk without having a brain, winning any sort of kicking battle becomes incredibly, incredibly difficult. To look at just how wrong Wales were getting their kicking, let's take one situation where they really ought to be on top, where they have absolutely no excuse for it going badly. Line-out in the Scottish half and decent maul, Wales opt to kick off first phase. This is fine as a decision, but the kick is really poor. It lands outside the 22, but it's an easy one for Van der Merwe to take. And alarmingly, Wales have moved their best high ball chaser in Liam Williams to directly opposite where it lands, suggesting this is exactly where Bigger was aiming. The kick is purely about him hanging on the edge of where Wales can feasibly recover it, whereas this box kick still puts the opposition under pressure if the chasers don't recover it. The way Wales kicked in that first half was only in any way useful if the chasers did catch it, which didn't happen once. The 1% this does apply to the pressure valve is more than relieved when Van der Merwe, not a known kicker, thumps it long randomly. In response, Dan Bigger hangs a Gary Owen that lands just behind where the original line-out was, already a net loss for Wales. But that's actually just where the chess begins. Stuart Hogg here is positioned as though he's kicking towards a left-hand touchline, but he instead spins his body round to punt it on the right. Halfpenny was basing his positioning on Hogg's body language, so has to jog about 40 metres to cover the ball, by which time Hogg is already there to pressure his reply. Much like Daly last week, Halfpenny can do nothing but thump it long along the touchline, not thinking about anything but distance. This is easily covered by Russell, who launches the same gambit as earlier, freeing Darcy Graham in the space closest to a pocket of forwards, whilst going hard to fix Tipuric, the only Welsh jackal threat nearby. Halfpenny has remained on this wing to chase the kick, so Williams drops into the fullback position, but Scotland play a quick fade into the middle, which forces Rhys Zammit to fly up to prevent this here being an overlap. However, it was a trap, it was a big old trap. Williams is covering fullback from the far wing, so can't get across in time, and Zammit is now pulled up into the line, leaving nobody defending the backfield down the side for Wales and allowing Russell to pin them into their own 22. Whereas Wales were kicking without wondering whether Scotland might have it covered, or whether the chaser might have to run through piles of Scottish forwards, or looking to drop a slight shoulder or elbow to slow the Welshman's progress, Scotland instead kicked to manipulate Wales and keep them on the back foot, often creating opportunities to attack, such as this. Clever kicking leaving Halfpenny and Williams on the floor, so Price dinks it for Hogg to chase, with Tompkins doing well to just get in Hogg's eye line and prevent the clean catch that likely could have led to a try. As such, with Scotland completely on top, Wales' first try fell against the run of play. Up until now, we've seen no systematic way to open up Scotland's defence since Steve Tandy took over. Every try Scotland conceded in that time coming from a lucky bounce, coming from a grind over from 1 inch, or a moment of genius, be it in the case of this brilliant team try by Italy, or just the fact they had to play against Anton Dupont. But after this maul collapses, Wales just need to hit the same space twice. They set a pod of forwards opposite their Scottish counterparts, who are yet to fold wider since the maul. Instead, it goes to Halaholo, who crashes between the 10 and 12 channel, the first two backs in the line. Watkin and the forwards clear out, and Wales now have quick ball. Finn Russell, the 10, is here, still on the ground. James Lang, the 12, has taken position here as one of the three forwards Scotland like to have close to the ruck, but nobody has filled in for either of them. This creates a huge hole here, which the Scottish defence notice and converge on. Every player kind of takes a step inwards, but Bigger ships the ball onto Tompkins, who adjusts his line to dissect the 13 and wing, just as Halaholo did the 10 and 12. He offloads to Williams, who just has to fix Hogg and put Rhys Zammit away for what is a pretty regulation finish by his standards. For all of the first half but that try, Scotland felt on top. Even after a good carry by Faletau here, Scotland shut down Bigger's options and forced him to take it in. Beard carries to try and help refine shape. He considers the offload, he loosens his grip to do so, realises nothing's going to be gained, but not before Matt Fagerson goes, "Hey, cool, nice." Can I have that? And just rips it right out of his hands. Before he can even get to the ruck, Ali Price has identified tons of space in the Welsh backfield and puts in a great kick. The vast majority of fullbacks would then get smashed in this stretch by Van der Merwe here, but Halfpenny is able to clear the ball. He does it, though, once again with no real thought, just kind of hoofing it, and it allows Hogg to launch a counter-attack right through the middle of a retreating Welsh forward pack. Scotland keep attacking, and they eventually get to a point where, if not for Finn Russell being a little bit too clever for his own good, they could have created a try, despite this whole passage starting with Wales crossing the game line on their first phase. Scotland were just superb, and dominant to a point that I looked up their record win over Wales for reference's sake come the second half. However, as it turned out, I really didn't need it. For me, this was a match with two turning points, and I think if Wales only had one and not the other, not both, fall in their favour, we'd still be daydreaming about Finn Russell pouring champagne down his teammates' backs come the round 5 final whistle. One is fairly obvious, it's, the red card. Whereas I stand by my assessment that Wales were comfortable enough against Ireland that the card didn't make much of a difference and they would have won anyway. The card had a tangible impact on Scotland. The team are good enough and well drilled enough that it didn't really affect their attack, but the real damage was done psychologically. This card came moments after Wales scored to get themselves back in the game, to put themselves only 2 points behind. And I can't help but feel, if this card was given when the scoreline was still 17-3, it would have had far less of an impact on the result, even if it meant Scotland playing an extra half an hour down a man. But once the card is given, Wales decided to go for the kill. No thought of any shot at goal. Sheedy kicks for the corner and the Welsh maul splinter Scotland until they get up to the line. And then it only takes 3 carries to cross. This is a great carry by Wyn Jones, but it's Alan Wyn Jones twisting his namesake's body as he falls that means the prop is in prime position to ground the ball. Now, Alan Wyn was magnificent against Ireland for all the reasons we usually associate with him, his massive tackle count, his work rate, etc, etc. But it's this kind of bonus presence of mind and gamesmanship that makes him so invaluable. This is a Scotland team who have been so close and lost on so many occasions before, and the passage immediately after the red card is the worst I've seen them defend across all 11 games under Steve Tandy. But look at the body language right from the card to Jones's try. Even beyond, the team don't look calm as though this is merely a setback. They don't look pumped up as though they can't wait to hit back and score again. They don't even look heartbroken. They look tired. But not tired in a lack of fitness way, tired in a I'm so sick of this shit way. That's the energy that fed this retreating maul, the goal line stand without bite. Compare Finn and Ali's cheeky grins here in the tunnel to their dour demeanour after Wales take the lead. Scotland could and maybe even should have won this game, even with a red card, but years of letting things slip just ate them for the one crucial passage Wales needed to get ahead. Scotland turned a massive corner at Twickenham in many ways, and I don't think this undoes or misproves that, but it does show they still have some way to go. Whilst they did hit back with a try for Stuart Hogg and almost again in the last play, but for a magnificent ankle tap by Owen Watkin, who played like a man possessed after looking so angry with himself and missing the tackle on Hogg for that try, I don't think it's unfair to say that while Scotland have added an all-roundedness to their game and mastered a sublime kicking game, they still struggle with swings and momentum. They struggle with their heads sometimes just going down. They're yet to learn how to regain control once it starts to slip away. And this was crucial because the other turning point was all about control and momentum. The second key moment that inspired the Welsh comeback was this: a simple box kick in Wales' own half, hung by the player in the Six Nations the fewest people watching this video would notice at a party, Kieran Hardy. On the 48-minute mark, Wales coach Wayne Pivac makes a bold and in the end totally brilliantly inspired call, replacing the 140 caps of Biggar and Davis with the 6 caps of Sheedy and Hardy, but it paid off immediately. This is Hardy's first touch of the ball, and it signalled an end to the dim, dull, uninspired Welsh kicking game that allowed no momentum up until then. It's a brilliant kick. It's a bit too far for any Welsh chasers to reach, but the furthest possible point from any Scots. No one in their main line can track back, and Van der Merwe, the only player in the back three who doesn't play fullback, is forced to run a solid 20-30 metres onto the ball, and then to run backwards to avoid being smashed. Whereas with Biggar and Davis on the field, Scottish runners were able to pick where they wanted the counter-attack. Instead, Van der Merwe just has to take the tackle and all the nearby forwards flood into the ruck to prevent it being turned over with Tipuric there on the scene. So when Scotland try to attack subsequently, there are no forwards in place to prevent Willis Halaholo getting over the ball and winning the turnover penalty for Wales. And from there it really begins. Wales get a great maul going from the resulting line out. Owens is able to recycle the ball and Scotland have 8 forwards and 2 backs in Price and Van der Merwe in this area here. Tandy's defence would normally have the forwards drift to help the backs out, but Wales just sneakily take care of that. Wainwright is clearing Gray out the ruck in such an extreme fashion he nudges Fagan Fakerson, and Alan Wynne-Jones' dummy line is more about nudging the other Fakerson, meaning only one of the Scottish forwards is able to help out at all. Wales, meanwhile, have brought 6 backs round to this side and used their numbers to good effect. The Welsh 10 and 12 start sequentially, but the ball goes to Halaholo instead, with Sheedy wrapping around his back as Watkin runs a good line to distract James Lang. Sheedy represents a new threat to Harris, who bites in to take him, but have a look at where Rhys-Zammit starts. He's so far back, Scotland have no way of feasibly knowing where he's going to end up at all, if indeed he is going to, until he actually hits the line, by which point he's through. Sheer pace takes him past Graham and he can then just fix Hogg and put Williams over in the corner. And then after Hogg's second, confidence high and ability flowing, Wales pull one from the Scottish playbook and Fowler have targets the area closest to fellow forwards and barrels over Scott Cummings to get things going. Wales then go wide to wide, getting it out to Tompkins on the wing who takes it in. If a team isn't used to the system, right, if they're say, a man down, forcing them to shift the point they're defending from, be it far left, far right or centre, is the easiest way to try and shake things up. Scotland struggle to drift and reorganise, and Russell and Lang are both still trapped on this side of the ruck, leaving Harris the only back in position. Some nice handling by Sheedy and Beard allows Halaholo the time he requires to drift then straighten, drawing both Harris and Van der Merwe before unleashing Lewis Rhys-Zammit. And, I mean, man alive is he quick. The sheer acceleration to get far enough away from Van der Merwe that he can't even attempt to tackle is incredible, and then he waits until Hogg is close enough that having to turn would be a significant disadvantage, and he chips it infield, further away from the fullback, meaning Zammit is able to follow up and score the kind of try that would be appearing on those 101 Great Welsh Try DVDs if such a thing still existed to gleefully clog up stockings each Christmas time. And from there, Wales just kicks superbly. This blinder by Rhys-Zammit is obviously magnificent and the standout, but this by Hardy might look just fine. But look how far Hogg has to sprint to cover it. The backfield are unable to wait around and plot their next move or spot where the space in the Welsh backfield is to kick into, as they could under the bombardment of Biggar, Davis, Youngs and Farrell. Instead, they're staying on their toes, trying to anticipate where Hardy is going to hang it. Now, my big takeaway from these two games is I'm not quite sure why being on the end of 2 pieces of nasty foul play has made Wales the villains of the tournament, but is a role the Welsh are slowly starting to embrace, and they'll need more of that dog and fight to take on England in Cardiff when the tournament resumes. Scotland, meanwhile, no longer hunting a Grand Slam, wild or otherwise, travel to Paris, knowing an awful lot is still in their hands. A win against France would put them in a pretty good position to take the title if Wales didn't complete that ridiculous slam. There's a lot of Six Nations to go before we find out for certain just how jammy either of these teams can be. Hello, I'm an ostrich now. Just wanted to say thank you for watching. There's loads more going on in the channel. I'm going to do Ireland France next. The other games of the first round of the Six Nations plus Italy versus England are already on the channel. As is this video that you're watching right now. There's loads more going on. Thank you to everyone that supports the channel on Patreon. It makes a huge difference to allowing me to do this, and I hope that it might afford me the expensive surgery to turn back from an ostrich into a human.
Qui a donné pour Halaholo, Rhys-Zammit, Rhys-Zammit par-dessus,
si le rebond lui est favorable.
Rhys-Zammit, oh quel essai, il se l'est fabriqué tout seul.